Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for yet another Film Fanatic Odyssey. It is 10:48 Monday morning. Hope everyone had a good weekend. This weekend was pretty fun. I had a couple shows and we played one. One show was at the Camden Snowball for the big toboggan races, so that was fun. I used to play there, played there a few times other in the past, and usually it's always fun, but kind of chaotic with the amount of people that are around and loading in and all those things. But this year was a lot easier, so it was definitely more organized, and I don't know, it was cool. It was a lot of fun. It's nice being in a nice warm room. So yeah, hope everyone's doing good. It is Monday. I just finished up a big a big series of videos for Game of Thrones. Unfortunately, things ended on a really, and again, these are always a matter of opinion, so I know people don't share my opinions a lot of the times, and I think that's wonderful. I don't want to live in a world where everybody has the same opinion because life would be boring. The one thing, and I don't believe in a place or a world or a social climate where I don't really believe in the concept of idealism. I think it just, you know, it sets, whenever you present that in an argument or a framework for your understanding of the world, it always sets, I think, sets things up for a disaster. Meaning that I feel like, people who have diverse opinions, different viewpoints, I think that is, it's an important thing. But I will say, if I was going to bring that idea to the table about idealism, I would say, in a world that I would love to live in, where I would say that it would be great if people had a respect for other people's opinions a lot of the times. And I also feel that being an individual and like really thinking for yourself and making that decision on your views is extremely important. I don't feel like that's done enough. I think most people and things are are based from this like perspective of what other people think. Whether they're large social groups or smaller fringe groups. I think people still do that a lot, and that's fine. People can do what they want to do, and I also feel there should be maybe a more idea of like, okay, not everybody and their grandmother should necessarily be as vocal as they are. I think, people who are going to talk about certain things or certain issues, I think they need to know more or less what they're talking about. And again, that's subjective, but I think if you see in your, research when you're looking around about opinions, if a person has a sense of, from a historical perspective, and that person or individual has taken more or less a deep dive, and they've spent a lot of time doing their research, and they've lived in that world for a long time. I would say 99% of the time that person is more qualified to give a valid opinion than someone who is seeing something or a genre or a topic for maybe the very first time. That happens a lot with social media. So you have to really, I know for myself, you really have to, and again, it means a lot, but then it doesn't. But I think, again, you have to like sift through a lot of crap to find to find gold, to find someone or to find a voice out there that, okay, clearly this person has a wider range, a broader range of perspective. For instance, horror, my favorite genre of films. You can look if someone is if you see what they're talking about or what they're covering over a large period of time, and they cover say multiple decades, multiple genres or subgenres within that genre, but they have totally taken that deep dive. They give a real broad perspective because they have, taken that time to understand the genre as a whole. Not just they're not just basing their opinions on 5 movies. So anyway, so today's show, and again, getting back to Game of Thrones, I uploaded the video yesterday on season 6. It for me, it went out on a really sour note for the most part. I don't know if I'm going to continue watching the series. At this point, I'm kind of fatigued. I'm not really interested in continuing. I've heard from other people, other reliable sources that, well, I had one friend specifically say, well, if you think it's bad now, wait to the finale, season 8, and that I guess it just gets worse and worse and worse. So I don't really have an interest in watching something that is probably going to be so utterly terrible. So I am not at the point to spend the money or sit through it because I could barely sit through season 6. So, but I will say 1 through 5 of Game of Thrones is just amazing, phenomenal. But anyway, I'm back to making regular movie presentations, so that's what I've been doing, and which is my favorite thing to do. So today's show is on a movie. I got this set probably about a month ago. It was around New Year's Eve. Was the last time. It was like no, actually, it was the day before New Year's Eve of this year. So technically, last year. Here we are in going into finishing up the first week of February. So it's been a while since I've been to Bull Moose, my favorite place, my home away from home. I will be going back pretty soon. I got pretty inundated with a bunch of movies that I bought, and I just finished all of them. So fabulous and amazing. I did a show on Horror High, which is in this collection that I got at the Bull Moose in Bangor. I went there again, like I said, the day before New Year's Eve, so technically it was last year. So it's been about a month, and I did a show on Horror High, uploaded it actually this morning. Check it out; it's an amazing film. This collection is so awesome. I was amazed. A lot of the times, and I did say it in the other video, a lot of the times when you buy combo packs for Blu-ray or DVDs, you see them a lot with DVDs, but you do see them a lot with Blu-rays. A lot of the times with combo packs, you usually get 2 or 3 movies for the price of one, essentially. But the only downside or negative thing to that is if you're a fan or a film fanatic or a collector, and you want to have try to get a good package where it has a lot of special features. I find a lot of the times you don't get that. You just kind of get the movies. But again, the price is amazing. Usually, it's totally worth it. The transfer from the film from usually the original negative to Blu-ray is usually immaculate. So it's usually worth it. And I have quite a few of these combo packs. But this one, I have to say, is probably the best one I have, simply because, well, not only are both of these movies just amazing, each movie has a ton of special features. It's crazy. It's crazy. And, talk about finding that disc, finding that information. Especially like I get really excited when I see a movie or discover a director that I had never heard of before, or someone that I'm revisiting, or a film that I'm revisiting from when I was a kid. I get so excited about the special features aspect because I want to see how the movie was put together. I want to see what the inspiration was. I want to like look behind the curtain, and get a sense of what you know what inspired this wacky film. So it's great. And last night I finished up the second movie on here, and that is Stanley. And both of these films I had never heard of before, and definitely have never seen. And this is amazing. And I watched Stanley, which is the second film on this disc. It's from 1972, and it's incredible. It was directed by William Greff. It's a totally wacky story. It's basically centered. It came out in 1972. It's total, pure exploitation. It's definitely a horror movie. It's pretty bizarre. It gets really bizarre towards the end, and the climax of this film is pretty wacky. Definitely, the 70s. I've always talked about it, but the 70s, that still remains my favorite decade ever for films, and especially in the horror exploitation world. And both of these films, kind of embody that reason and exemplify why I think the 70s was the greatest decade ever in cinema. Not only for, your low budget, kind of sleazy exploitation movies, but I think in general, just for, a lot of great Hollywood films, a lot of great foreign films, just across the board. But I think especially in the world of horror exploitation and exploitation and giallo, yeah, it was the golden decade, and I've never seen, and of course, sure, there's so many great, the '80s especially. I mean, slashers are my favorite, is my favorite genre. But and this past year I was discovering a lot of films from the '60s, '50s even, that I had never seen before, and I try to stay up on modern films. But there was something truly magical about the '70s, unlike anything else. I think what it, I kind of think about why is that? Why do I feel the '70s is, why was it such a an amazing period for film where like there was just this renaissance? And I don't know. I think what happened. I think what was going on was the filmmakers. At the time, the studios that were backing them, the distributors, everybody that was involved with films in the '70s, I felt like there was an element of danger. There was an element of where people were willing to take some risks, and a lot of these people were, really, really filled with passion about what they did. But I felt like the decade of the '70s was unique because I feel everyone really involved with all of these films. I just feel like they had a sense of, you know, on one hand, not really giving a shit, but then taking a risk, and having this sense of urgency, a little, the element of danger around that. I just feel like that's what, it was kind of more. I almost think of the '70s as being like this kind of outlaw period. So I just feel like maybe that's what it is. Maybe, and I know I've seen that opinion shared a lot by other people in film, fans and critics. But, and I know, again, it's just my opinion, but I feel like personally for me, because I always go back to the '70s, that decade, I causes me obviously to think, why is that? Why is it? why does it resonate so much with me? And I think that that's the reason. And so it's interesting. So, but this movie, Stanley, is totally wacky. It's basically centered on this guy who is like, well, a snake handler, and he has this kind of uncanny control and relationship with these snakes, these rattlesnakes. This film has so many scenes of where there are copious amounts of snakes that were very, very dangerous to handle. This film was shot outside of the comfort zone of Hollywood because there was no clearance by boards, safety boards for basically trying to keep the actors from dying or getting injured. This film, a lot of these people risked being attacked by these snakes. Very dangerous, and it's hilarious, and it's a totally weird and wild ride. And basically, there's definitely an element of danger in this film, but it's amazing. I've never seen it before. It's a really unusual movie. The lead character appears to have this almost telepathic kind of communication with these snakes, and so people that are his enemies, he's able to use these snakes to basically kill them, and he has protection from them also. But really unusual movie, super cool, super cool. The transfer of this movie on Blu-ray is just spectacular, as well as Horror High. Um, and again, I had never seen this film before, and it came out in 1972. Just amazing. The artwork is just totally spectacular. This movie was both of these films. It's interesting, watching the special features. Very, very, very underground, super uber low budget films, but they're actually very well done. Really good cast, good story. I love that both of these films are included in the same package, but they're definitely exploitation movies, but they're so different from each other. And I would say Stanley is definitely a horror film. It doesn't quite seem like it's a horror film in the beginning, or throughout most of the film, but it definitely takes on those kinds of horror trappings that I feel you can probably safely say it's a horror film. Pretty cheesy at times. Some of the acting is horrible. Some of the writing is bad. But again, it's a case of it's still so damn good, and it adds almost like in this kind of mirror, using this mirror in a way where those things that could harbor the movie or make the movie terrible or unwatchable. It actually, all of those traits that are not really great about the film actually enhance the movie and actually make the film a much more enjoyable experience, and in its own weird and strange and unique way. And I think good. Well, again, it's subjective, but maybe it's an oxymoron, but good exploitation movies, I think, are really great, and especially this film, Stanley, uh, have this thing where they tote this line between something that is pretty shitty, pretty bad, but then it's also amazing at the same time, and it just totes this line of where it's completely absurd, completely ridiculous for all intents and purposes. Like if you lay it out on paper, it shouldn't work, but then it has all of those qualities where it's entertaining, it's super campy, and it has that amusement park quality to it. It's pure escapism. So all of those things work together. And then you have movies that, again, these are just opinions, but then you have movies that are just bad, just bad. For example, after I finished Stanley last night, I started to watch Hellraiser 3. I'm a huge Hellraiser fan. I think the first two films are amazing. I'm going to do a review on the second one at some point. But the Hellraiser films it's a huge franchise. There's a lot of movies that they've made that after they made. I think there's aside from one and two, there's four or five other ones, and I have one or two of the later ones, and they're unwatchable. I have never really seen. I had never really seen Hellraiser 3, and so I started watching it last night, and I got about 35 minutes into it. I'm like, this movie is just unwatchable. It's terrible. Where it doesn't have any redeeming quality. It tries so hard to be serious, and it doesn't have that balance or that kind of cool counterbalance that exploitation movies have. So I took it right the fuck out of the machine, and I was like, this movie sucked so bad. And then just everything about it. And I'm like, this is the factor I feel that really makes these exploitation movies special. So I can't recommend it enough. Really great. Stanley and Horror High, and Stanley is a fabulous movie. Never seen either of these movies, and this is a really great special feature. There's so many great special features included on here. I finished watching the special features, which had all kinds of interviews that was just great in Stanley, and which was almost 2 hours. Each movie has about 2 hours or so of great interviews. So fantastic. Thanks again. This is Jason Dean, and we will see you next time. Peace.